Busy day. Politicians popping up all the time, including Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice. Richard, good morning to you.
Good morning from a very chilly Victoria Gardens. I've got my gloves on, it's freezing, and I think that's the shivering mood of the nation, frankly.
But what's the difference? The question is, my friend, there is some sunlight in the background, so people could think, oh, maybe there's good times on the way. But what is the difference between Reform UK and Labour when it comes to tax and spend?
Very simply, we've got to cut wasteful, unproductive government spending. We've got to cut daft regulations which disincentivise people to work hard and to take risk and to be entrepreneurial, setting up small businesses up and down the country. And if you do that, then you create growth. And if you create growth, then you can have performance-related tax cuts. This government believes the opposite. They believe that the state is the best way of spending money. It's that sort of hard socialist view of life. And that goes fine until you run out of other people's money. And that's what's happening at the moment. We've borrowed, just remind you, just under £120 billion in the first 7 months of this year. And the Chancellor is in serious trouble, and this is going to be a inflation rising, tax rising, job destroying nightmare for people to dread, frankly.
How do we create wealth? How do we make Britain an attractive place for people to invest?
It's very simple. It's actually basic stuff. You make work pay by giving people an incentive to work. Instead, they're going to freeze the tax thresholds, the income tax starting point threshold, and then you create an incentive for people to take risk, to go out and spend their money on creating a business, a small business, employing people. If you impose too many employment regulations, then people won't employ people. If you lift the minimum wage, which it looks like they're doing for youngsters, by too high a percentage, by over double the rate of inflation, don't be surprised if businesses start to not employ young people, and that's an absolute tragedy. I've just heard at the beginning of this week from major recruitment firms up and down the country, and businesses they're literally freezing new employments, particularly of temporary workers and young workers. This is an absolute tragedy imposed by a government that has not a clue what they're doing. They're essentially driving our economy in some sort of nightmare multi-car pile-up over the cliff.
And impacts of business. What does Reform UK make of the boost to the national living wage and the minimum wage? I mean, fantastic if you're in receipt of that pay boost, I'm sure. But what consequences do you think this would have for business?
The consequence is, as I'm saying, if you increase the minimum wage too high, don't be surprised if businesses say, I can't afford it, and therefore I'm going to employ no one. And that doesn't help anybody. That means that actually that young person looking for their first or second job out of school or out of college doesn't get a job. It means they're on benefits, and then the danger is they get trapped on benefits, and that's a cost to the state, not a benefit to the state. So what the government should do is incentivise individuals to work by making work pay, and they should incentivise entrepreneurs, small business owners, to take more risks, to work harder, set the alarm clock a little bit earlier. That's how you create entrepreneurial enthusiasm, excitement. That creates growth, and that's what the nation understands and wants. But instead, no, it's doom and gloom. The state knows best. Nanny Rachel knows best. And it's taking us in completely the wrong direction. Borrowing's out of control, spending's out of control, and growth is flatlining.
But Richard, why didn't Nanny understand from the last budget that the national insurance increases greatly impinged on employment and who employers would actually hire?
Because she told us she was an economist. It turns out, actually, she's Rachel from complaints. That's the simple reality.
Okay.
Can we ask you about something totally different? Front page of the Daily Telegraph today saying that David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, set to scrap jury trials for most crimes, apart from murder, rape and manslaughter. What do you make of that as a plan?
Well, there is a crisis in the criminal justice system where the backlog of cases is now many years, and that's a disaster for everybody, particularly the victims. So, look, something's got to be done. We'll have to see the detail of what is being proposed. Ultimately, we've got to make sure that common sense applies, but also that actually proper justice applies. And let's remember, people are innocent until proven guilty. But if it's a matter of continuous improvement or a temporary adjustment to get over the backlog, then let's look at the detail.
Richard Tice, stay warm. Thanks for your time today and your comments.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind. The more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
To Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Richard Fuller, I doubt would disagree with any of that. Richard, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
How much of a Grinch do you think the Chancellor will be today?
Well, of course, she has delayed this budget to just before Christmas, but we really shouldn't be here. She promised last year that she wouldn't be coming back for more, that she'd wipe the slate clean, but of course all those promises now lie in the dust. And I think she has put herself in a very difficult situation. And the big decision today is she going to lean into appeasing Labour MPs? Yeah. Leaning into Labour MPs, or is she going, or is she going to be looking after the British public?
What do you make of the farmers being told at 3:30 yesterday afternoon that they could not bring their tractors outside of Westminster? They could not bring their tractors to Whitehall. Neil O'Brien, your colleague, saying this is an example of two-tier policing, that Palestinian protesters were allowed to take over central London for Saturdays for months on end over the past year or so, but it's farmers who've been banned from bringing their tractors here. What do you think?
Well, Conservatives believe in peaceful protests, and there are no more peaceful protesters than our farmers. In fact, I've just passed 3 tractors there parked up with the police, talking to people about why they are there. And of course our farmers should have the right to come to London to press their case on the disastrous decision, one of many that Rachel Reeves made last year, which is having a real impact on family farms. So, of course, my colleague Neil O'Brien was right. Farmers should have the right to protest. That's a British tradition. We've got to stop these Labour attacks on our traditional British form of justice.
Well, talking about attacks on justice, what do you make of David Lammy talking about scrapping jury trials for most crimes, that juries would only decide upon cases of murder, rape and manslaughter?
Well, I think it'd be the wrong thing to do. We've had this right in our country. It's one of those signal rights about British justice that countries and people who are under oppression always look to, that you get the chance in England to have a trial if you've done something wrong by a jury of your peers. But what makes this doubly bad is that David Lammy is being such a hypocrite, because he, in his own words, he has said in the past that jury trials are important and that we should increase the amount of time that judges sit and juries are called, so that people can continue to expect that traditional British right.
But Richard, we can't continue to accept a backlog. I mean, in the region, we have a backlog of 80,000 cases which aren't reaching court. Something's got to be done to speed up the process.
And that's what Mr. Lamy said when he was in opposition. That's what my colleague Robert Jenrick has said. And their answer, both of their answers, the old David Lamy and Robert Jenrick, is that courts should be made to sit regularly. And I believe, Eamon, that is also the position of the Chief Justice of the UK. Now, that would mean to make sure that money is made available from the Ministry of Justice budget. But you have to ask yourself, if there is a backlog, is the right first answer to rip up centuries of British justice, the way we expect people to have trials, or is it to find a way to make the system work more effectively? Robert Jenrick is right. We can have more effective justice by making courts sit more frequently.
But Richard, with all due respect, you ripped up that when it came to Northern Ireland, and people have diplock courts there, and now we're in a situation where, since the Good Friday Agreement, it is a judge only, not a judge and jury in so many cases.
Yeah, look, Eamon, I'm not an expert on Northern Ireland, but you're right. I remember back in my younger days about the diplock courts, but that doesn't mean that that is the right approach for British justice in the long term. I think British people expect and anticipate that we would have at the head of our justice system a member of the cabinet who would be supporting all the things that we learn about in school. One of the first things I learned in school was the importance of jury trials. So I accept your point, Eamon, but I don't think that then means that that's the right thing to do in the rest of the UK.
Okay.
Bringing you back to the budget today, are the Tories supportive of the boost to both the national living and minimum wages? What does this mean for young people? What does this mean for businesses?
Well, I think we've got to look at those things in the round. A lot of small businesses, remember, most people, most young people for sure, get their first job by working for a small business. And we know that business confidence at the moment is at an all-time low. I think the Institute of Directors in their most recent survey said it was an all-time low, and they pointed to this increase in the cost base for employing people as part of that reason for the lack of confidence. So of course it's nice when people can get an increase in pay, but if you take last year's increase and this year's increase in the minimum wage, not the living wage, but the minimum wage, that's a 25% increase in the cost of employing a young person. And that will have an effect on whether businesses want to take the risk by taking someone who is new and perhaps unskilled and train them up. And when you layer on top of that Labour's job-destroying employment, quote-unquote, rights bill, which will put more regulations on small businesses, you look at the round of all that and you have to say, what is that going to do to the employment prospects of young people to get a job in the first place?
Richard Fuller, thank you very much indeed for your comments today. Richard is the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury on what it is a big day financially there in Parliament. Thank you very much, Richard. Appreciate it.
Thank you.